The camera is already too deep for daylight when the first shape crosses the monitor. It does not arrive with speed. It does not rush the light or thrash against the black water. It simply appears at the edge of the beam, pale where the lamps catch it, darker where the body turns away, and for a few seconds the scale of the animal is hard to accept because there is almost nothing beside it to compare it with. A research ship may be holding position far above, its deck moving under wind and swell, while several thousand meters of cable hang beneath it. In the control room, the animal is only a form on a screen. A fin, a limb, a curve of skin, a long arm entering the frame before the body has arrived. The numbers in the corner of the video may say 1,000 meters, or 2,000, or more, but the depth reading alone does not explain the feeling of seeing something large where humans are used to imagining emptiness. A car is a familiar unit of size because it belongs to the surface world. It has a known length, a known weight, a known outline in a driveway or at the side of a road. A compact car may be about 4 meters long. A large car may stretch close to 5. In the deep ocean, that comparison becomes strangely useful and strangely misleading because many of the animals that exceed that length are not built like cars at all. They are soft, they are narrow, they are jointed, they are colonial. They may be longer than a vehicle and weigh far less, or shorter than a vehicle and stronger than the comparison suggests. The deep sea does not produce giants in one simple way. Some grow long because a body stretched through water can search more space with little energy. Some grow heavy because cold water and slow lives allow tissues to accumulate over many years. Some are wide because legs or fins extend far beyond the body itself. Some are not single individuals in the ordinary sense, but colonies of connected animals drifting as one living system. The title sounds simple. Deep sea giants bigger than cars. The reality is more careful than that, and more interesting. If these large, quiet animals are why the dark water keeps drawing you back, subscribing keeps the next descent within reach. Before reaching the giants, the water itself has to change. At the surface, the ocean is a bright and restless place. Waves fold sunlight into fragments. Wind stirs the first meters. Small fish flash in open water, and plankton rise and fall with the day. A few hundred meters down, the red light is already gone. Yellow fades. Green weakens. Blue lasts the longest, and then even blue becomes less a color than a memory of one. Below that, vision depends on lamps, on the eyes of animals, or on living light made inside bodies. The twilight zone begins where sunlight is still present, but too weak for plants to grow. This region, roughly from 200 to 1,000 meters, is not empty water. It holds immense layers of small fish, crustaceans, squid, jellyfish, and gelatinous animals that rise at night and sink by day. Lanternfish gather in numbers so great that sonar can mistake them for the seafloor. Predators follow them. Larger animals wait below them. Food falls through them as marine snow, each particle a fragment of the surface world being carried downward. Below the twilight zone, the midnight zone begins. Here, the sun is no longer part of the animal's day. Temperature drops. Pressure rises. Food becomes intermittent, uneven, and often hard to predict. A carcass may fall and feed a community for years. A bloom at the surface may become a slow rain of organic matter. A current may concentrate prey against a canyon wall. A whale may sink to the bottom and turn an empty-looking patch of sediment into a crowded island of scavengers, worms, crabs, bacteria, and time. Pressure increases by about 1 atmosphere for every 10 meters of depth. At 1,000 meters, the pressure is roughly 100 times what it is at the surface. At 4,000 meters, where much of the deep seafloor lies, it is powerful enough to crush unprotected machinery and compress air-filled spaces until they fail. Deep sea animals are not crushed because they are not built around fragile air cavities in the same way that human bodies and machines are. Their tissues, fluids, proteins, membranes, and behavior are all shaped by the environment around them. Large size in this world is not a sign that life is easy. It is often a negotiation with scarcity. If food is rare, a large animal needs ways to reduce energy use, move efficiently, store energy, and survive long intervals between meals. If prey is scattered, long arms, wide mouths, sensitive eyes, chemical sensors, or slow cruising can matter more than speed. If cold water slows metabolism, growth can continue for years in ways that would be impossible in warmer, faster systems. Scientists use the phrase deep-sea gigantism for a pattern seen in some groups, especially invertebrates, where deep-living relatives become much larger than shallow water relatives. The causes are not the same in every animal. Cold temperatures, oxygen availability, delayed maturity, longer lifespan, reduced predation, food pulses, and the physics of moving through water have all been discussed. The phrase is useful, but it is not a single explanation. It is a doorway into many explanations. A giant isopod, resting on sediment like an armored pillbug from another scale of life, is one version of the pattern. A Japanese spider crab, with legs that can span several meters, is another. A squid with arms and tentacles long enough to cross the length of a small room is another. A siphonophore arranged in a spiral that could stretch longer than a blue whale is something different again, because it is not one animal body in the ordinary sense, but a colony of specialized units sharing a drifting life. The deep sea does not reward waste. A large predator cannot afford to hunt like a surface animal in constant sunlight. It may wait. It may rise at night. It may drift with fins barely moving. It may strike once and then return to stillness. A scavenger may cross broad distances after detecting chemicals from a carcass. A shark may survive on slow metabolism and opportunistic feeding. A squid may grow enormous eyes because a little light, far away, can mean prey, predator, or the body of a whale passing through darkness. What makes these giants difficult to understand is not only where they live, it is how rarely they meet human instruments in a state that looks normal. A trawl may bring up a squid with the skin torn, the tentacles broken, and the body collapsed by the change in pressure. A stranded oarfish may look like a silver ribbon from a story, but it is no longer in the vertical water where it lived. A specimen in a jar may preserve anatomy while losing motion, color, transparency, and the attitude of a living body suspended in water. The deep ocean gives evidence in pieces. A beak in the stomach of a sperm whale, a sucker scar on whale skin, a dead squid at the surface, a shadow passing through rov lights, environmental DNA in a bottle of water, a sonar trace, a jaw, a hook, a tooth, a preserved mantle, a photograph from a baited camera. Each piece matters, but none of them is the whole animal. For much of human history, the largest deep animals were known through fragments and stories. Sailors saw arms and bodies at the surface and turned them into sea monsters because they had no other category for them. Later, scientists collected bodies from beaches and nets and began measuring the structures that myth had blurred. The real animals became more precise. They were not supernatural. They had beaks, stomachs, gills, nerves, muscles, eggs, parasites, scars, and ecological roles. That precision has not made them smaller. In some ways, it has made them larger. A giant squid is more astonishing when it is not a monster, but an animal with delicate skin, a parrot-like beak, arms lined with suckers, long feeding tentacles, and eyes adapted to detect faint light in deep water. A colossal squid is more impressive when its weight is not exaggerated, when the hooks on its arms are considered as real structures used by a predator in the cold Southern Ocean. A six-gill shark is more imposing when it is understood as a slow-moving scavenger and hunter, not as an invented threat. The first giant to enter this story is the one that carried the oldest fear. It lives in a body plan humans recognize from smaller squid, but stretched into an animal longer than many cars. Its scientific name is Architeuthis. Its common name is giant squid. Most of the time, it is not seen. It is inferred. It passes through deep water, leaves Dina behind, leaves beaks in predators, and occasionally, rarely, appears alive in the narrow circle of a camera system built by people trying not to disturb it. Imagine a camera hanging in black water with no seafloor beneath it and no surface above it, only a bait, a lure, and a field of particles moving past the lens. For hours, perhaps, nothing large comes close. Small animals drift through and disappear. The line trembles slightly with the movement of the ship far above. Then a pale form enters the edge of the frame, and before the viewer can understand the body, an arm has already extended toward the lure. The giant squid is a deep-water cephalopod, but the phrase deep water covers a wide and uneven habitat. It is not a creature of a single trench or a single cave. It is found across much of the world's oceans, mostly known from stranded specimens, fishery bycatch, and remains in sperm whale stomachs. Mature animals may inhabit the dark midwater and deep slopes where light is weak or absent, where fish and squid layers move vertically, and where the boundaries between predator and prey are difficult to observe. Scientifically measured giant squid have reached nearly 13 meters in total length, including the long feeding tentacles. That length is not the same as body length. The mantle, head, and arms make a much shorter animal, and the two long tentacles can stretch and distort after death. This distinction matters because deep-sea animals are often made legendary by the most extreme measurements. A responsible description keeps the animal large without turning every maximum into the ordinary size of every individual. Even with that caution, a mature giant squid is far beyond the scale of most animals a person will ever see alive. The mantle may be thick and muscular. The arms carry rows of suckers whose rings can leave marks. The two feeding tentacles extend farther, ending in clubs that seize prey. The beak sits at the center of the arms, a hard cutting structure surrounded by soft tissue. If the animal were removed from water, much of its grace would vanish under its own weight, because its true posture belongs to buoyancy. A squid does not swim like a fish. It can move with fins, hover, turn, and pulse water through a siphon for jet propulsion. Fast jetting is useful, but it is expensive. In the deep sea, where energy is limited, constant high-speed movement would be costly. The image of a giant squid as an animal always attacking at full force is probably less accurate than the image of a large, sensitive predator that spends much of its life positioning, sensing, conserving energy, and taking opportunities when they appear. Its eyes are among the features that make people pause. Large eyes are not decoration. In the deep ocean, they are instruments. They gather what little light exists, including the glow made by other animals. A flash of bioluminescence may reveal prey. It may reveal a predator disturbing smaller organisms. It may reveal the movement of a sperm whale, whose approach could be signaled by plankton and gelatinous animals flashing in response to pressure waves or turbulence. The eye is part of a survival system, not a symbol of mystery. Sperm whales are one of the clearest pieces of evidence for giant squid lives because they eat them. The stomach contents of whales have provided beaks that survive digestion long after soft tissue is gone. Whale skin can carry circular scars from squid suckers, though scars alone do not always tell a simple story. The whale may have seized the squid. The squid may have gripped the whale during a fatal struggle. Or the marks may record only a brief moment in a larger event that no camera saw. These encounters are often imagined as battles between monsters, but the ecological reality is colder and more ordinary. A sperm whale is a mammal that must return to the surface to breathe. A giant squid is a cephalopod living in dark water with no lungs, no voice, and no reason to become a legend. When they meet, one is predator and one is prey most of the time. The squid may resist because any animal resists being eaten. The whale may dive repeatedly because food at depth is worth the effort. The spectacle is real, but the animals are not performing it for us. Direct observations of giant squid alive remain rare. That rarity does not mean scientists know nothing. Anatomy, genetics, bycatch records, stomach contents, and occasional footage all provide evidence. But behavior is still difficult. How often does it feed? How far does it move in a day? How does it choose depth? How do young giant squid survive before they become large enough to enter the world of whales? These questions are not empty spaces for invention. They are active edges of knowledge. A giant squid larger than a car is therefore both a physical fact and a reminder of how scale changes underwater. The animal may be longer than the vehicle, but it is not solid like one. Its length is distributed through arms, tentacles, and soft muscle. A car resists the air and road as a hard object. A squid lives by yielding to water and shaping water. Its size is not a block. It is a reach. When a dead giant squid washes ashore, the body often looks ruined by the time people gather around it. Skin abrades. The mantle sags. The eyes collapse. Tentacles may be missing. Photographs turn the animal into proof and spectacle at the same time. A measuring tape is stretched along the sand, and the numbers become the story. But somewhere before that beach, before the net or the surface drift, the same animal was suspended in cold, dark water, moving with a balance the sand cannot preserve. The colossal squid enters the story from colder water. It belongs to the Southern Ocean, where the geography of the planet gathers cold around Antarctica, and where life has taken on shapes that seem restrained by ice and enlarged by time. It is not simply a longer version of the giant squid. In many measurements, it is shorter, but heavier. Its body is thicker. Its arms carry hooks. Its known world is more polar, and much of what scientists know has come from specimens caught by fishing vessels or from the stomachs of predators. For a long time, the colossal squid was more specimen than sighting. It was a name attached to partial remains, then larger bodies, then a few extraordinary preserved animals that allowed scientists to examine structures usually hidden in the deep. The most famous specimen, kept in New Zealand, became important not because it solved everything, but because it gave researchers a large body to measure carefully. Mantle, hooks, beak, arms, eyes, stomach contents, sex, tissue condition, the slow translation of a deep animal into evidence. Adult colossal squid are considered the heaviest living invertebrates known to science. The best-known large specimen weighed just under 500 kilograms after capture and examination, and mature animals may exceed that. They are not known from crowds of observations. They are known from a small number of bodies, fragments, predator stomachs, and recent footage of a juvenile alive in its habitat. The animal is famous, but the evidence is still narrow. The hooks are one of the details that separate the colossal squid from the more familiar giant squid in the public imagination. Giant squid have suckers with tooth like rings. Colossal squid have rotating hooks on parts of the arms and tentacles, hard structures set into soft flesh. A hook is a simple thing to understand in a drawer, on a specimen table, under a laboratory light. In the living animal, it becomes part of a moving grasp, part of how prey may be held in cold, dark water, where a lost meal is costly. The eyes of colossal squid are enormous, often described as among the largest known in the animal kingdom. A large eye in deep water does not mean the animal sees the world as we do. It means the animal is investing tissue and energy in detecting faint information. The Southern Ocean is not completely without light. There is downwelling twilight in upper depths. There is bioluminescence. There are flashes from prey, predators, and disturbed plankton. A huge eye can turn tiny signals into usable knowledge. A mature colossal squid has predators of its own, especially sperm whales. The evidence is not dramatic because it does not need to be. Beaks and stomachs are enough to show that whales feed on them. The squid's hooks and suckers may leave signs on whale tissue, but the final outcome is usually known only because the squid is gone and the beak remains. In this way, one of the largest invertebrates on Earth is often discovered after being reduced to the part of its body most resistant to digestion. In 2025, scientists confirmed video of a living colossal squid in its natural habitat for the first time, but it was not a huge adult. It was a juvenile, about 30 centimeters long, seen by en Rove at roughly 600 meters near the South Sandwich Islands. That detail matters. The footage was historic because the animal was alive, not because it showed the full-size giant people had imagined. A baby or juvenile can reveal life in a way that a dead adult cannot. The juvenile looked almost fragile compared with the adult reputation of the species. Its body was translucent. It was not a red mass of weight and hooks. It was a young glass squid drifting in deep water, carrying the features that allowed experts to recognize it. That small body changed the story because it moved the colossal squid from museum and stomach evidence into the camera beam, if only briefly. It showed that even the largest animals begin as something small enough to disappear in a cup of light. This is one of the difficulties with deep-sea giants. People often want the largest version immediately. They want the full adult, the record animal, the body bigger than a car, the proof that scale has crossed into spectacle. Science often receives the animal at another stage: a juvenile in a beam, a broken tentacle, a beak, a genetic trace in water, a half-digested remain. The story grows by fragments, and the fragments are not less valuable because they are small. The colossal squid is a predator, but its life is not a single act of predation. It must grow. It must avoid being eaten when young. It must find prey in a region where food is patchy and seasonal. It must reproduce, though the details of its reproductive life are still not completely known. It must live in water structured by temperature, depth, oxygen, currents, and the movement of prey. Its size is only the final visible result of a long sequence of survival. A car beside a colossal squid would be a strange comparison. The squid would not stand next to it. It would not hold its shape on land. Its body would spread and collapse because the land is not its medium. Yet in the water, a heavy adult is an animal of huge presence. The mantle, arms, tentacles, eyes, hooks, and fins form a body built not to impress the shore, but to function in an ocean where almost no person will ever see it alive. Cold water is part of the background to its scale. In polar and deep habitats, low temperatures can slow biological processes. Some animals grow slowly and live long. Oxygen can behave differently in cold water than in warm water. Metabolism, development, and body size become linked in ways that do not produce a single rule, but they do create possibilities. A squid does not become colossal simply because the water is cold. It becomes colossal because its lineage, anatomy, prey, predators, and environment all allow that outcome. The Southern Ocean is not a blank ring of water. It holds krill, fish, squid, whales, seals, seabirds, and deep currents that connect surface productivity to dark depths. Seasonal blooms near the surface feed food webs that continue downward. A squid living below the brightest layers is still connected to sunlight through prey. Even in darkness, the energy begins elsewhere. The largest animals in the dark are supported by systems that include ice, plankton, currents, and the brief abundance of polar summer. When researchers examine a colossal squid specimen, the body becomes a map of questions. How old was it? How quickly did it grow? What did it eat? Was it mature? Were the tentacles intact? Were the hooks worn? What parasites were present? What does the beak size suggest when compared with beaks recovered from whales? A single specimen can answer some questions and sharpen many others. It can also remind scientists how little a body tells us about behavior once motion is gone. In a museum, the colossal squid rests under controlled light, preserved in a tank, surrounded by visitors who can finally see a shape that was once almost inaccessible. It is useful there. It teaches scale. It teaches anatomy. It anchors a name to tissue. But the animal did not evolve for glass walls. It evolved for cold water, dim signals, prey that flees, predators that dive, and a pressure-filled world where its own weight was carried by the sea. From the colossal squid, the story moves to an animal that may look even stranger in ROV footage because its body does not immediately explain its length. The big fin squid can appear at first as a small central form with fins like two soft ears. Then the arms drop down. They bend at angles. They extend in long, thin filaments that seem too delicate to belong to the same animal. In a dark frame, those filaments can make the animal appear far larger than the body alone. Big fin squid belong to the family Magnapinidae, a group known from rare observations, specimens, and deep camera encounters. They have been seen at remarkable depths, deeper than any other known squid in some records. Their arms and tentacles can hang down in a distinctive posture, extending far below the body, with long, slender filaments that may search the water or contact prey. The posture is so unusual that even an experienced viewer can need a moment to understand what is being seen. This is a different kind of giant. A big fin squid is not massive like a colossal squid. It is not a heavy block of muscle. It is a long-limbed presence, an animal whose scale is created by reach. The central body may not be larger than a familiar squid, but the appendages can extend to lengths that exceed a small car. In the deep sea, reach can be its own form of size. It allows an animal to occupy more water without carrying the metabolic burden of a large, thick body. Because big fin squid are rarely collected and rarely observed, much of their behavior remains uncertain. Scientists have proposed that the long filaments may be used to detect or capture small prey, perhaps by drifting or holding position while the appendages contact animals in the water column or near the seafloor. The exact details are not fully known. The animal's posture suggests a feeding strategy, but the deep sea does not hand over complete behavioral sequences simply because a camera is present. ROV footage changes the tone of the evidence. A specimen on a deck can show anatomy, but a big fin squid in the water shows posture. It shows how the arms angle away from the body, how little movement may be required, how the animal can seem suspended, almost like a diagram drawn in living lines. The lights may flatten distance and color, but they preserve a truth that a dead specimen cannot. In its own habitat, the animal is arranged by water. Some sightings have occurred thousands of meters below the surface, including depths where pressure is hundreds of atmospheres. At those depths, a human body survives only inside a pressure-resistant vessel or behind the engineering of an ROV. The squid is simply there. Its proteins, membranes, muscles, and nervous system function in a place where ordinary air spaces would fail. This does not make it magical. It makes it native. The big fin squid also reveals why the phrase "bigger than a car" needs patience. Is the animal bigger because its total reach exceeds 4 or 5 meters? Is a thin filament equal to a hood or a door? The comparison is imperfect. But the feeling in the control room is not imperfect. When a small body passes through the light and the appendages continue downward beyond the frame, the viewer understands that scale in the deep sea is not always mass. Sometimes it is extension into darkness. A long appendage in black water is useful only if the animal can afford to maintain it. Thin tissues can tear. Filaments can be damaged. Prey can escape. Predators can approach from directions the camera never sees. A big fin squid survives not by being a spectacle, but by fitting a set of conditions: sparse prey, low light, slow movement, and a body plan that turns length into a sensory and feeding surface. There is another quiet lesson in these squid. The largest deep animals are not always the strongest in a simple sense. Some are delicate. Some are easily damaged by nets. Some look powerful only when they are imagined in conflict, but in life they may be fragile structures balanced against pressure, cold, and hunger. A giant squid, a colossal squid, and a big fin squid all use arms and tentacles, but they solve scale differently. One emphasizes length and reach. One emphasizes weight and hooks. One extends its body into thin lines that make the surrounding water part of its hunting shape. The deep sea repeats certain themes without repeating the same animal: reach, patience, low energy. sensory precision. Opportunism. A body that seems strange at the surface often makes sense when placed back into water, pressure, and darkness. The bigfin squid does not need to be turned into a symbol. It is already remarkable as a living solution to a problem that humans barely know how to observe. The camera watches it for as long as the encounter lasts. Sometimes that is only moments. The ROV cannot always follow. The animal may drift beyond the lights, or the vehicle may have a mission that prevents pursuit. The screen returns to particles, black water, maybe a depth reading, maybe the faint glow of another organism too small to identify. The giant has not vanished in a dramatic way. It has simply left the tiny space where humans were able to see. Not every deep-sea giant is a predator with hooks or teeth. Some are long because their entire body has become a ribbon. The oarfish is one of the clearest examples. It is often called a deep-sea fish, though it lives mainly in the mesopelagic zone and upper deep layers, rather than crawling across the abyss. It is the longest bony fish known, with a silver body that can reach lengths well beyond a car, a red crest along the head, and long fin rays that move like small signals in the water. Most people do not see oarfish where oarfish live. They see them dead or dying, floating at the surface, stranded on beaches, or brought close to shore in weakened condition. The body is so unusual that it has been linked to sea serpent legends, earthquake myths, and disaster stories. But the fish itself is not a prophecy. It is a pelagic animal, adapted to a vertical world, one that normally holds itself in dim water, far from ordinary human sight. The exact habits of oarfish remain incompletely known because live observations are rare. They are thought to feed on small animals such as krill, plankton, and small crustaceans, using a protrusible mouth and gill structures suited to straining prey rather than biting large animals apart. Their body is long and laterally compressed, more like a living blade than a torpedo. They are not built for fast pursuit in the way a tuna is built. Their scale comes from elongation, not bulk. A live oarfish in water does not look like the broken ribbon often photographed on a beach. It can hold itself vertically, head above tail, with the dorsal fin running along the body and undulating in small waves. This posture matters because it reminds us that deep-sea animals often lose their meaning when removed from their medium. On land, the oarfish becomes a length. In water, it becomes a posture, a way of occupying a column of dim blue-black space. Picture an ROV or submersible light finding one beside a slope or in open water. At first, there may be only a pale vertical line. Then the head resolves, with a red crest and a large eye. The body continues downward, far beyond what the mind expects from a fish. It does not need to rush. The fin ripples. The rest of the body follows with slight corrections. It is not a sea serpent in the old sense, but it helps explain why sea serpent stories existed. The oarfish shows that being larger than a car can mean being almost weightless in appearance. A long fish does not need a thick body to exceed familiar measurements. It needs structural support, buoyancy, and a way to move without spending too much energy. In a habitat where prey may be small and scattered, a giant length can be sustained if the animal's life is slow enough, if its food is available enough, and if it avoids becoming food for larger predators. Long bodies also complicate the idea of dominance. A fish 8 meters long may seem like it should rule its environment, but scale alone does not define ecological role. An oarfish is not an apex predator in the manner of a large shark. It is a large-bodied consumer of much smaller animals. Its size may help with energy storage, reproduction, predator avoidance, or movement through layers of water. The reasons for length are not always the reasons people imagine. When an oarfish comes ashore, the story often becomes distorted. Headlines reach for the language of omens and monsters because the animal looks impossible on a human beach. Scientists arrive with coolers, gloves, measuring tapes, and knives for necropsy. They examine stomach contents, parasites, tissues, and injuries. They look for signs of disease, trauma, starvation, temperature stress, or ordinary death. The myth is loud. The evidence is quieter and more useful. A dead oarfish on wet sand is an interruption between worlds. Children may stand near it, reporters may film it, waves may lift the edge of its body and lay it down again. The red fin rays lose their underwater motion. The silver skin catches daylight it was not meant to reflect. For a few hours, a fish of dim water becomes a surface event, and then it returns to science as tissue, notes, photographs, and stored samples. The next kind of giant has no face in the ordinary sense, no single pair of eyes looking back at the camera, and no skeleton that would stand in a museum like the frame of a dinosaur. It may be longer than any whale, longer than a row of cars, and yet calling it one animal requires a slightly different understanding of individuality. This is the siphonophore, a colonial hydrozoan, a relative of jellyfish and corals, built from many specialized units that function together as a single drifting system. In 2020, researchers working off Western Australia reported an enormous siphonophore arranged in a spiral, estimated at about 45 meters, or roughly 150 feet, in length. The number is difficult to hold in the mind because the animal is not a thick, heavy body. It is a living chain, a colony with feeding parts, swimming parts, reproductive parts, and structures that share a common origin. It can exceed a blue whale in length while remaining almost transparent in the water. A siphonophore does not become giant by building one massive body. It becomes giant by repetition and specialization. Some parts move the colony. Some catch prey. Some digest. Some reproduce. The entire structure may hang or drift in the water column like a net made of living tissue. Tentacles can trail through the dark and sting small animals that make contact. In an environment where prey is scattered, spreading a feeding surface through more water can be an effective solution. Siphonophores are important because they force the question of what we mean by an individual. Each unit, or zooid, is specialized and cannot live independently in the way a separate fish can. The colony functions as one organismal system. It grows, feeds, moves, and reproduces through coordinated parts. When people ask for the longest animal in the ocean, siphonophores often enter the discussion, but their colonial nature makes the comparison different from measuring a shark or squid. RAW footage of large siphonophores can feel almost impossible because the camera light reveals only part of the structure at once. A spiral appears in darkness. A line of translucent bodies catches the beam. Tentacles hang below like nearly invisible threads. The animal is large enough to exceed familiar surface objects, but delicate enough that a current can reshape the way it appears. The scale is not delivered by weight. It is delivered by geometry. A car is a machine with one purpose, repeated by millions of copies. A siphonophore is a living arrangement, a body made by division and coordination. It may pass through water above a canyon, over an abyssal plain, or in the open midwater without touching the seafloor at all. Small prey drifting through the wrong thread may become food. Larger animals may pass through without noticing the full extent of what is around them. The colony is not hiding in a cave, it is spread through space. These animals are easily lost in ordinary language because they seem too delicate for the word giant. People expect giants to be muscular, heavy, armored, or dangerous. But the deep sea allows another kind of largeness, one that is thin, translucent, and distributed. Gelatinous bodies are common in the midwater because water supports them, because transparency can be camouflage, and because soft tissues can be less costly than building heavy skeletons or shells. Gelatinous animals are not rare decorations in deep water. They are central to midwater ecosystems. Jellyfish, ctenophores, salps, larvaceans, siphonophores, and other soft-bodied forms can move carbon, consume prey, and provide food for other animals. Their bodies may not preserve well, which means the historical record of their abundance is poor. Cameras have revealed a world that nets often damage or miss. A net can turn a delicate giant into mucus and fragments before it reaches the deck. This is why technology changes the animals we know. A trawl favors hard parts, tough skins, shells, bones, and bodies that survive being dragged, squeezed, and hauled through pressure changes. Cameras favor animals that can be seen where they live, even if they cannot be captured intact. Environmental DNA favors the presence of genetic traces, even when the animal has already moved away. Each method has a bias, and the deep sea is understood through the overlap between them. The largest siphonophore is not known because someone brought it up whole and stretched it beside a measuring tape. It was seen by an underwater vehicle, in place, in the water that supported it. That distinction is important. Some deep-sea giants can only be properly measured in their habitat because outside the water they would collapse, break, shrink, or become unrecognizable. The deep sea is not just where they are found, it is part of their shape. Another giant of reach, rather than mass, lives closer to the seafloor in the waters around Japan. The Japanese spider crab is not always described as a deep-sea animal in the strictest abyssal sense, but it inhabits deeper coastal waters and continental slopes, often hundreds of meters down. Its body may be only a fraction of its total span, but the legs can reach wider than a small car. In an aquarium, it looks like a walking frame built from patience and long joints. The carapace is not the giant part. The legs are. Long, thin, orange, jointed, and often scarred or missing in wild individuals, they extend outward until the animal seems to occupy more space than it weighs. A Japanese spider crab can have a leg span of around 4 meters, sometimes reported a little more or less depending on the source and measurement. The comparison to a car is immediate because the animal could stand over the outline of one, though the body at the center is much smaller. The crab's world is not open mid-water like the squid or siphonophore. It is a bottom-associated world of slopes, sediments, rocky areas, and continental margins. It moves on legs rather than fins or jets. It feeds as a scavenger and opportunist, taking animal matter, plant material, and whatever the seafloor provides. Its scale is not built for high-speed pursuit. It is built into reach, leverage, and a slow crossing of uneven ground. Like many large arthropods, it must molt to grow. Molting is a vulnerable event. The old shell is shed, and the new one hardens over time. For an animal with such long limbs, damage is common. Missing legs are not unusual. This makes the crab less like a perfect monster from a poster and more like an aging seafloor animal carrying the marks of ordinary survival. Its size does not protect it from everything. It gives advantages and creates problems at the same time. An rough arm approaching a large crab on the bottom has to move carefully. The manipulator is metal and hydraulic, designed for sampling rocks, placing instruments, collecting specimens, or lifting objects. The crab is a living animal, reading the world through touch, smell, vibration, and the chemistry of water. It may raise its legs. It may move away. It may appear slow, but slowness is not the same as simplicity. On the deep slope, slow movement can be enough. The spider crab shows another reason the deep sea holds giants. The water supports limbs that would be awkward under full gravity. Buoyancy changes what is possible. A long-legged animal on land has to fight weight differently. Underwater, legs can be extended into a broader structure without the same mechanical cost. The crab still has to lift and coordinate them, but the sea carries part of the burden. Its long life, slow growth, and vulnerability to damage make the animal feel less like a spectacle and more like a record. A missing limb can regrow through molts, though not instantly. A scar can remain. A large individual may represent many years of avoiding predators, finding food, surviving molts, and moving through habitats where human eyes rarely linger. The span is impressive, but the history inside that span is more impressive. Fins change the feeling of the story. A squid can seem ghostly because of its soft body. A siphonophore can seem almost abstract. A spider crab can seem architectural. A large, deep shark feels different because its outline is familiar from the surface world, And that familiarity makes the size more immediate. A blunt head, a long body, a tail moving slowly through the edge of the lights. The animal does not need to be exaggerated. A shark longer than a car is enough. The blunt-nosed six-gill shark is one of the deep ocean's large predators and scavengers. It has 6 gill slits instead of the 5 most people associate with modern sharks: a broad head, a single dorsal fin set far back, and a body that can reach lengths around 5 meters in large individuals. It lives in tropical and temperate waters across the world, often in deep regions of continental slopes, shelves, canyons, and seafloor habitats, where food arrives in uneven ways. Six-gill sharks are not confined forever to one depth. In some regions, they move vertically, spending daytime in deeper water and coming shallower at night. This behavior connects them to the daily movement of prey layers and to the changing risk of light. A shark can be a deep-sea animal and still use a range of depths. The boundary between the hidden ocean and the visible ocean is crossed every night by millions of animals, from tiny crustaceans to large predators. An ROV meeting a six-gill at depth records a different kind of presence than a baited camera meeting a squid. The shark may circle. It may approach the lights. It may pass over a whale fall, a wreck, a slope, or a field of sediment. The tail beats are broad and measured. The body does not look frantic. It looks like an animal built to conserve motion, to cover ground, and to use a jaw full of cutting teeth when the opportunity is real. A whale fall can draw six-gill sharks into the light because it provides what deep water rarely provides in abundance: a huge, concentrated meal. When a whale dies and sinks, its body can feed scavengers in stages. Hagfish enter through soft tissue. Sleeper sharks or six-gills may remove large portions. Crabs, amphipods, worms, bacteria, and specialized communities follow. The carcass becomes a temporary landscape, and large sharks are among the first powerful visitors. The deep sea often appears sparse when viewed through a camera because the camera frame is small. A whale fall reveals the opposite. It shows how quickly chemical information can spread and how many animals are waiting within reach of it. A shark larger than a car does not need to search randomly forever. It uses senses refined for a world where scent, vibration, and electrical signals can matter more than clear vision. A decaying whale is not just food, it is a signal. Six-gill sharks have broad diets that can include fish, rays, other sharks, cephalopods, crustaceans, carrion, and marine mammals depending on region and opportunity. Calling them predators is accurate, but incomplete. Calling them scavengers is also accurate, but incomplete. In the deep sea, the line between hunting and scavenging is often practical rather than moral. Energy must be taken where it can be found. A carcass is as real a resource as a living fish. Their large size gives them access to prey and carrion that smaller animals cannot handle, but it also means they must find enough food across a vast environment. A large shark cannot spend energy carelessly. It may swim slowly for long periods. It may feed heavily when it can. It may go without a large meal when necessary. The deep sea favors animals that can endure gaps between opportunities without collapsing metabolically. Because six-gill sharks are seen at depths that humans can now film with ROVs and submersibles, they can appear better known than they are. Footage provides behavior in moments, not complete lives. Tags provide movement patterns, but not every decision behind them. Stomach contents provide diet, but only recent meals. The animal is visible enough to feel familiar and hidden enough to remain incomplete. A large six-gill passing a camera is not an ancient relic in the simplistic sense. Its lineage has old relatives, and its body plan has features that resemble earlier sharks, but the living animal is not a fossil. It is a modern species, reproducing, feeding, healing, and navigating present-day oceans. Describing it as prehistoric may sound dramatic, but it can flatten the more important fact that it is alive now, subject to modern fishing pressure, habitat change, and ecological shifts. Many deep-sea sharks grow slowly, mature late, and reproduce in ways that make populations vulnerable to overfishing. A large animal that takes years to replace itself cannot absorb heavy losses in the same way a small, fast-breeding fish can. This matters because deep-water fisheries and bycatch do not only remove individuals. They can alter populations before people have fully understood the roles those animals played. The Greenland shark carries that lesson into colder water. It is one of the strangest large sharks on Earth, not because it behaves like a monster, but because its life appears stretched across time. It inhabits cold northern waters, including Arctic and deep North Atlantic environments. It can grow longer than a car, sometimes over 5 meters, and it is famous for longevity on a scale that makes most vertebrate lives seem brief. A Greenland shark may move through water cold enough to slow almost everything. Its body is heavy, rounded, and not built for display. The eyes may carry parasitic copepods. The skin is rough. The swimming can look almost sleepy, but that slowness is part of a functioning life. In cold, deep water, speed is not always the main currency. Persistence can be more important. Scientific estimates have suggested that Greenland sharks can live for centuries, making them among the longest-lived vertebrates known. The exact ages of individuals are difficult to determine, but the pattern is clear enough to change how the animal is understood. A large shark may have been alive before modern cities grew into their current shapes. It may have moved through dark water during human wars, inventions, extinctions, and climate changes, all without needing to surface into our history. Greenland sharks are known to inhabit deep, cold waters and have been recorded by remotely operated vehicles at depths of hundreds of meters, with dives known far deeper. They feed on fish and marine mammals and also scavenge. Stomach contents have included a range of animals, but sensational lists can mislead if they are treated as normal behavior. The important point is that they are opportunistic feeders in cold systems where available energy must be used efficiently. A Greenland shark does not need a dramatic attack to be impressive. Its size, age, and habitat are enough. It is a slow engine of tissue and metabolism moving through water near freezing. In places where the surface freezes, where daylight disappears for part of the year, where the seafloor slopes into darkness, this shark continues a life that may be almost impossible for humans to witness in full. A camera encountering one sees only a crossing. The animal enters the beam with a dull gray body and a small eye. It may not react quickly. It may not flee. It may pass as if the machine is only another object in cold water. Then the tail moves, the body angles away, and the shark becomes a shape dissolving into blue-black space. For the shark, this may be an unimportant moment in a life measured in centuries. The Greenland shark also shows how size can be linked to time. Growing large slowly is different from growing large quickly. A small animal may reach maturity in months. A deep cold shark may take many years, perhaps more than a human lifetime in some estimates, to reach sexual maturity. This changes the meaning of every large individual. It is not only a body over 5 meters long, it is an accumulation of survival over an extraordinary span. The exact mechanisms behind its longevity are still being studied. Slow metabolism, cold habitat, and low growth rates are part of the discussion, but no single phrase explains the whole animal. Longevity is not a mystical property. It is biology. It is chemistry, temperature, growth, reproduction, predation risk, cellular maintenance, and the evolutionary trade-offs that make a life possible in one environment and not another. Another large shark, less famous but deeply connected to this cold, dim world, is the Pacific sleeper shark. It belongs to the same broader family of sleeper sharks and can reach sizes comparable to or exceeding many cars. It inhabits cold waters of the North Pacific, often at depth, and like the Greenland shark, it has a reputation for slow movement and opportunistic feeding. Much about its life remains less visible than its size would suggest. Sleeper sharks do not need to look dramatic to be formidable. Their mouths are broad, their teeth are arranged for cutting and holding, their bodies are thick and heavy, They can consume fish, squid, carrion, and other available prey. In some places, they are associated with deep slopes, canyons, continental margins, and cold productive systems where prey and carcasses move through layers of water. A Pacific sleeper shark may feed on animals that people think of as powerful in their own right. It may take squid, fish, seals, or carrion, depending on place and opportunity. But as with the Greenland shark, caution matters. Stomach contents show what an animal has eaten, not always how it obtained that food. A seal found in a stomach may have been hunted or scavenged. A large fish may have been alive or dead. The deep sea often leaves the method out of the evidence. The sleeper shark's name can create the wrong impression. Slow does not mean ineffective. A slow animal can still be a successful predator if prey are vulnerable, if ambush is possible, if scavenging supplies energy, or if the animal's senses allow it to locate food efficiently. Speed is only one tool. In deep cold water, endurance, stealth, tolerance, and energy storage can matter just as much. Large deep sharks also connect the deep sea to the surface in ways that are not obvious. Some feed on animals that dive down. Some scavenge bodies that sink from above. Some move between depths themselves. The deep is not sealed off from the upper ocean. It is connected by falling particles, migrating prey, carcasses, currents, and animals that cross between layers. A shark at depth may carry the surface inside its stomach. When a whale dies, when a seal carcass sinks, when fish are injured, when squid spawn and die, energy moves downward. The deep sea receives these events not as stories, but as matter. Sharks, crabs, hagfish, amphipods, worms, bacteria, and countless smaller organisms convert death into continuation. Large sharks are visible participants in that process, but they are not the whole process. They are one scale in a much larger recycling system. This is where the word giant can become misleading if it isolates the animal from its food web. A 6-gill shark is large because a system supports it. A Greenland shark is large because a cold system allows slow growth and long life. A sleeper shark is large because its body plan, prey base, and metabolism make that size viable. Remove the system, and the giant becomes impossible. The deep sea is not a backdrop for large animals. It is the set of conditions that makes them real. In the reference frames humans bring with them, large animals become characters quickly. The shark becomes ancient. The squid becomes monster. The crab becomes alien. The siphonophore becomes the longest thing alive. These labels are not always wrong, but they are too small if they stop there. Each animal is also feeding, sensing, avoiding, reproducing, being parasitized, being injured, healing, starving, finding mates, and dying. A large shark leaving the camera beam does not exit into nothing. It enters a volume of water with temperature layers, oxygen gradients, prey movements, chemical traces, and topography. It may descend along a slope. It may cross a canyon. It may follow scent. It may ignore the vehicle entirely. The darkness around it is not empty atmosphere. It is habitat, and the shark belongs to it more completely than the light ever will. The animals that truly exceed car length are only part of the pattern. Around them are smaller giants, animals not bigger than cars, but much larger than their shallow water relatives. They help explain the conditions that allow scale to increase in deep habitats. A giant isopod is not the length of a vehicle. It may be the length of a human forearm or more, depending on species, but beside the tiny pillbugs under a garden pot. It looks as if the deep sea has taken an ordinary form and enlarged it under pressure. Giant isopods belong to the same broad crustacean order as small isopods on land and in shallow water. In deep water, some species have become large, armored scavengers that move across the seafloor with a slow, jointed patience. They have hard plates, many legs, compound eyes in some species, and a body built close to the sediment. When an ROV light catches one resting on the bottom, it can look like a remnant of an older world, though it is simply a living crustacean doing what its lineage does. A baited camera often reveals how quickly these animals can respond to food. A fish head, a piece of squid, or a package of bait lowered into deep water may sit in the dark for a while, apparently alone. Then the first amphipods arrive, tiny bodies flickering through the light. Larger scavengers follow. Isopods come in from the edge of the beam, legs working beneath the armor. The bait becomes a temporary center of the world. A giant isopod can go for long periods without feeding in captivity, a trait that fits a habitat where large meals may be separated by time and distance. Starvation tolerance is not glamorous, but it is one of the great skills of the deep sea. The animal cannot assume that food will arrive daily. Its body must be able to slow, wait, store, and then feed heavily when an opportunity appears. A carcass is not just food. It is a rare event to be exploited thoroughly. Deep-sea gigantism in crustaceans and other invertebrates has been linked by researchers to several possible factors, including cold temperatures, oxygen availability, reduced metabolic rates, delayed maturity, and longer lifespan. None of these factors acts alone in all cases. A large isopod is not large for the same reason a giant squid is long or a spider crab is wide. The pattern is repeated, but the pathway differs by lineage. The giant isopod also shows that deep-sea size does not always come with elegance. It is blunt, armored, and practical. It can roll its body to protect the underside in some relatives, grip food with mouthparts, and endure a world where soft tissue is quickly contested by other scavengers. The animal looks simple because it is hard-shelled and low to the ground, but its survival depends on sensing chemical cues, locating food, avoiding damage, and converting rare meals into long-term endurance. The seafloor around a feeding isopod may look still, but stillness is not absence. Fine sediment records movement. A trail may remain where a body crossed. Small amphipods scatter when a larger animal shifts. Bacteria begin work at a scale the camera cannot show. The bait darkens. Tissue loosens. Legs, mouthparts, and currents turn a single piece of organic matter into many smaller movements. Gigantism can also be seen in amphipods, relatives of the tiny crustaceans that swarm bait packages in the deep. In some trenches, submergent amphipods can reach sizes that surprise researchers used to seeing much smaller forms. These animals are nowhere near car-sized, but they belong to the same story because they live in cold, high-pressure depths where body size, growth, and food availability have taken unusual paths. Their bodies are reminders that scale is relative within lineages as well as absolute beside human machines. Trenches are often treated as the deepest symbols of the ocean, but they are not simple pits filled with monsters. They are narrow, geologically active habitats shaped by subduction, sediment movement, earthquakes, landslides, and the fall of organic matter from above. Food can be scarce, but not absent. Some trench animals are specialized for pressure and darkness. Some are scavengers. Some move along the trench floor as if the deepest places on Earth are ordinary ground. A large amphipod in a trench is not famous like a giant squid because it is not bigger than a car, not photogenic in the same public way, and not connected to old sea legends. But scientifically, it may be just as revealing. It asks why certain crustaceans grow larger at depth, what role temperature plays, what pressure does to membranes and proteins, and how animals sustain themselves in a habitat where every meal may come from far above or from the body of another deep animal. The deep sea contains giants that would impress anyone, and giants that only become impressive when compared with their relatives. Both matter. A 4-meter crab span is obvious. A 30-centimeter isopod is less obvious until you know the size of most isopods. A long siphonophore is obvious once measured. A large amphipod is a different kind of astonishment, one that belongs to biology rather than spectacle. Hydrothermal vents introduce another form of scale. The giant tube worm, Riftia pachyptila, can grow taller than a person in the eastern Pacific vent systems, with red plumes extending into chemically rich water. It is not bigger than a car, but it is giant among worms, and it lives in one of the most chemically unusual deep-sea habitats on Earth. It has no mouth or gut as an adult. Instead, it depends on symbiotic bacteria that use chemical energy from vent fluids. Hydrothermal vents occur where seawater enters cracks in the seafloor, is heated by underlying magma or hot rock, reacts chemically with minerals, and returns as hot, mineral-rich fluid. At black smokers, the fluid can emerge dark with metal sulfides. Around these chimneys, life is not based primarily on sunlight and photosynthesis, but on chemosynthesis, where microbes use chemical energy to produce organic matter. Larger animals then depend on those microbes directly or indirectly. Giant tube worms show that food systems can be local and intense in the deep sea. Away from vents, much of the deep depends on falling surface production. At vents, chemical energy from Earth itself feeds dense communities. Tube worms, mussels, clams, shrimp, crabs, fish, and microbes crowd into zones where temperature and chemistry change over short distances. A few centimeters can mean the difference between a usable flow and a lethal one. Standing beside a vent chimney, if a human could stand there unprotected, would mean standing where superheated fluid enters near freezing water under crushing pressure. The scene is not silent in a biological sense. Shrimp move over mineral surfaces. Worm plumes sway. Bacteria coat rocks. Crabs pick through openings. The chemistry is harsh, but the community is not accidental. It is organized around energy. The tube worm's giant size comes from a very different route than the sharks or squids. It does not roam in search of fish. It does not spread tentacles through open water. It builds a tube and houses bacteria in a specialized organ. The red plume exchanges gases with seawater. Hemoglobin carries oxygen and sulfide in ways that support the internal symbionts without poisoning the host. The worm is large because a partnership allows it to turn vent chemistry into growth. This partnership is one reason the deep sea should never be described as simply empty or lifeless. Even where animals are sparse, the systems can be intricate. At vents, cold seeps, brine pools, whale falls, seamounts, canyons, and midwater layers, life is shaped by local rules. The giants are not exceptions to the deep sea. They are outcomes of particular systems, each one making size possible under different constraints. Cold seeps produce another kind of chemically supported habitat. Methane and sulfide seep from sediments. Bacteria use those chemicals. Clams, mussels, tube worms, crustaceans, and fish gather around the resource. The animals may not be car-sized, but some are large for their groups and long-lived. A seep can persist for years, decades, or longer, giving slow animals time to grow in a place where energy is more reliable than the surrounding sediment plain. In seep footage, the scene may look less violent than a black smoker. White bacterial mats cover sediment. Clams sit half-buried. Mussels form dense beds. Crabs move across the edges. Fish hover close to the bottom. The giant lesson here is not always a single huge body. It is that the deep sea can build size and abundance wherever energy enters in a steady enough form. Brine pools add another physical boundary. Dense, salty water collects on the seafloor and forms a pool that looks like a lake under the ocean. Its surface can ripple when disturbed by an rov. Mussels and other animals may line the edge where chemistry supports life, while the pool itself can be hostile to many creatures that enter it. Large animals may approach, feed near the boundary, or avoid the dense brine. The habitat is visual proof that the deep seafloor has geography beyond mud and darkness. Some animals fall into brine and die. Fish may become trapped by the chemistry. Small bodies can rest at the bottom in water too dense and low in oxygen for normal life. Scavengers work the edges where conditions allow them to survive. The deep sea is not evil, but it contains hard borders. A few meters can separate food from danger, oxygenated water from suffocation, ordinary sediment from chemical stress. For giants, these habitats matter because they create concentrations. A large animal cannot survive on empty distance alone. It needs prey layers, carcasses, chemical ecosystems, migration routes, seamount currents, canyon funnels, or other structures that make food findable. The deep ocean is vast, but not uniform. Its productivity is patchy. Giants occur where the patches can support them, or where their own bodies allow them to cross the spaces between patches. This is why a list of large species is never enough. Giant squid, colossal squid, bigfin squid, oarfish, six-gill shark, Greenland shark, sleeper shark, spider crab, siphonophore. The names are impressive, but the deeper story is how each one solves the same broad problem in a different way. How to live large in a world where light is limited, pressure is high, food is uneven, and human observation is brief. The answer is not always strength. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is transparency. Sometimes it is a long life. Sometimes it is a jaw that can use carrion and prey. Sometimes it is a colony that spreads through water. Sometimes it is a partnership with bacteria. Sometimes it is a body that grows slowly in cold water until the familiar surface categories of small and large no longer apply. There is also a kind of deep giant that feeds not by seizing large prey, but by filtering small life from the water. The megamouth shark is one of the strangest examples. It is a large shark, sometimes longer than a car, with a broad rounded head, a huge mouth, small teeth, and a life spent largely out of sight. It was not scientifically described until the late 20th century, which is recent enough to remind us that large animals can remain unknown when they live in the wrong part of the ocean for human attention. Megamouth sharks are associated with deep water and vertical movement. They are believed to feed on planktonic animals such as krill and other small organisms, moving through layers where prey concentrates. Their mouth is large not for tearing apart whales or fish, but for processing volume. A giant mouth can be a filter. A body larger than a car can be sustained by tiny prey if the prey are dense enough and the animal moves in a way that keeps energy costs manageable. The megamouth's discovery story is important because it shows how incomplete the surface view of the ocean can be. This was not a tiny worm hidden in sediment or a microscopic animal requiring genetic tools. It was a large shark. Yet it entered science late because it spent most of its life where people did not fish often, swim, dive, or look. A giant can be hidden not by secrecy, but by depth, behavior, and probability. The head gives the animal its name. In photographs, the mouth can look almost unreal, a soft oval at the front of a dark body. But the shape makes sense when placed in a feeding context. The animal is not built like a fast pursuit predator. It is built to take in water and prey together. In the deep scattering layers, where krill and other animals form moving patches, a large filter-feeding shark can make a living from small bodies repeated in huge numbers. This links the megamouth shark to the daily vertical migration, one of the largest movements of biomass on Earth. Each night, countless small animals rise towards surface waters to feed under cover of darkness. Each day, many descend again to reduce predation risk. Predators follow them upward and downward. A deep water giant does not always live at one depth. It may live in relation to a moving layer of prey. A car parked on land does not need to think about vertical distance. A deep sea animal does. 200 meters can mean different light, different temperature, different predators, different prey. A shark that follows prey through the water column is not simply going up or down. It is entering and leaving worlds. The same animal may be deep at noon and shallower at night, always tied to the behavior of smaller bodies. Megamouth sharks remain rare in human records. They have been caught, stranded, tagged, and occasionally observed, but they are still not familiar animals. Their rarity in records should not be confused with a precise count of how many exist. The ocean can hide animals by making encounters unlikely. A species can be widespread and still seldom seen. It can also be genuinely uncommon. Distinguishing those possibilities takes time, sampling, and caution. This caution applies to nearly every giant in the hidden ocean. The animals most likely to be recorded are those that interact with fisheries, strand on beaches, approach bait, cross camera paths, or leave hard parts in other animals. That means the record is uneven. A squid that avoids light or vehicles may be underrepresented. A scavenger attracted to bait may be overrepresented in certain footage. A fragile gelatinous animal may be missed by nets and revealed by cameras. Observation changes the map. In a dark control room, researchers know this. They watch the monitors with excitement, but also with restraint. A single encounter is valuable because it happened at all. It is not enough to make broad claims about every day in the animal's life. The ROV lights show a body, a posture, a depth, a moment of behavior. Around that moment is a larger life the camera did not record. The deep ocean has a way of making human certainty look temporary. For centuries, giant squid were treated partly as myth because reliable observations were scarce. Then, bodies accumulated. Beaks were measured. Photographs improved. Cameras eventually saw living animals. The myth did not become true. It was replaced by biology. But biology did not remove the difficulty. It only gave the difficulty better tools. Tools matter so much in the deep because the human senses are nearly useless there without them. A person cannot simply swim down and look. Even a trained diver is limited to a thin upper slice of the ocean. Beyond that, the body requires pressure protection, breathing systems, lights, navigation, communication, and a way to return. The animals in this story live beyond the ordinary human body. A submersible window is a small oval of permission. A titanium sphere holds air at 1 atmosphere, while the ocean outside presses with hundreds of atmospheres. Lights cut a short tunnel into black water. The pilot may see only what the beam touches. Instruments record depth, heading, temperature, oxygen, salinity, and position. The animal that enters this light is not entering the human world. The human machine is entering its world briefly. ROVs extend that visit without risking a person inside the vehicle. They carry cameras, lights, robotic arms, sampling boxes, suction devices, sonars, lasers for scale, and sometimes bait or experimental lures. The tether connects them to the ship, carrying power and data. The pilots operate from a control room full of screens. The deep sea arrives as live video, instrument readouts, and voices speaking carefully over a recording. Laser scale marks are especially important for giants. 2 green dots projected a known distance apart can turn an image into a measurement. Without scale, a deep animal can deceive the eye. In black water, distance is hard to judge. A small animal close to the camera may look large. A large animal farther away may look modest. A long appendage may disappear beyond the frame. Measuring the deep is often a matter of placing known geometry into an unknown scene. Sometimes the animal refuses the geometry. A squid approaches, turns, and leaves before the lasers settle. A siphonophore curves through 3 dimensions in a way that makes length estimation difficult. A shark passes too close for the whole body to fit in frame. A crab stands partly behind a rock. A stranded fish can be measured easily, but the living posture is gone. Every method gives something and takes something away. Trawls provide another kind of evidence, rougher and older. A net dragged through deep water can bring back fish, squid, crustaceans, corals, sponges, and sediment, but it can also damage the animals it captures and the habitats it contacts. Soft-bodied animals may be torn. Delicate appendages may be lost. Pressure changes may alter bodies before they are studied. A trawl can discover what lives at depth, but it does not always preserve how those animals lived. On deck, a deep animal can look like an accident. The body may be abraded by the net, the skin may be scraped, the eyes may be damaged. Gas-filled spaces, if present, may expand. Colors may change quickly. A fish from the dark may appear grotesque under daylight because it is no longer supported by pressure, cold, and water. Many deep-sea animals are made ugly by the method that reveals them. Museum specimens repair some of that loss by preserving what they can. A jar, a tank, a drawer of beaks, a row of jaws, a labeled vial of tissue, a cleared and stained skeleton, these are quiet technologies of memory. They allow researchers to return to a body decades after it was collected. DNA can be sampled, measurements can be checked. Old records can be compared with new footage. The specimen is not the animal's life, but it keeps part of the animal available to science. Environmental DNA has added another layer. Animals shed cells, mucus, waste, and genetic traces into the water. By collecting water samples and sequencing the DNA within them, researchers can detect species that may never appear on camera during a dive. This method has already helped reveal elusive animals in places where direct sightings are rare. It does not provide behavior or size for an individual, but it can show presence, distribution, and hidden diversity. A bottle of deep water can therefore contain evidence of giants that passed through before the ROV arrived. The animal is gone, but the water remembers chemically and genetically for a time. This is not memory in a poetic sense. It is material. Cells and fragments remain suspended, diluted, transported, degraded. Scientists filter them, amplify them, compare them to reference databases, and sometimes find a name that would have been invisible to the camera. Environmental DNA also has limits. A trace may drift from another location. A database may be incomplete. Closely related species may be difficult to distinguish. The absence of DNA in a sample does not prove the absence of an animal from the entire region. Like every tool, it has strengths and weaknesses. But combined with cameras, specimens, sonar, and stomach contents, it expands the ways deep-sea giants can be known. Sonar sees differently again. It does not care about color or transparency. It sends sound into water and reads the returning echoes. Fish layers, squid schools, seafloor shapes, wrecks, gas seeps, and large animals can sometimes appear as patterns of sound. Sonar can reveal structure beyond the reach of lights, but interpreting the returns requires caution. A mark is not always a species. A layer is not always one kind of animal. Sound provides another partial truth. The ocean is not only hard to enter, it is hard to scale in the mind. A camera beam may show 3 meters of water clearly and hide 1,000 meters beyond it. A giant animal can pass just outside the lights and remain unknown. A car can be seen whole because it sits in air and light. A deep animal may be larger than that car and still be visible only as a fin, a tentacle, a row of legs, or a pale line fading out of frame. This is why many deep-sea giants are known by their edges. The edge of a sucker scar, the edge of a beak, the edge of a light beam, the edge of a DNA sequence, the edge of a sonar return. Human knowledge advances from edge to edge, and the center of the animal's life remains partly hidden. That hiddenness should not be exaggerated into mystery for its own sake. It should be respected as the condition under which the science is done. A responsible deep-sea story keeps two truths together. The giants are real, measurable animals, and the human view of them is incomplete. Both truths make the story stronger. If everything is known, the animals become simple facts. If nothing is known, they become empty myths. The deep sea asks for a middle position where evidence is valued and uncertainty is not filled with invention. The next descent begins not with a famous animal, but with the water column itself, because many giants do not live on the bottom at all. They live in the midwater, the largest habitat on Earth by volume, a place without walls, branches, burrows, or stable landmarks. It can seem featureless to humans, but it is structured by light, temperature, oxygen, pressure, migration, currents, and living signals. In midwater, there is no seafloor to rest on and no surface close enough to matter. An animal can live its whole life suspended between places, with depth as its landscape. Up and down replace the familiar ideas of road, forest, cave, or shore. A giant squid in this space is not lurking in a chamber. A siphonophore is not hanging from a ceiling. An oarfish is not hiding behind a wall. They are living in volume. The volume is not empty. It holds layers. At certain depths, oxygen may be lower. At certain times, prey rises. At certain temperatures, metabolism changes. Currents can carry animals across basins. Fronts can gather plankton and predators. The ocean may look uniform in a dark camera frame, but the animals experience gradients and signals that humans only recognize through instruments. A depth reading is not just a number, it is a position inside layered conditions. Bioluminescence is one of the major languages of this world. Animals make light to lure prey, confuse predators, signal to mates, illuminate targets, camouflage themselves from below, or startle an attacker long enough to escape. A giant predator with large eyes may be reading these signals constantly. A flash in the distance can mean motion. A glowing lure can mean danger. A faint outline against downwelling light can reveal a body that would otherwise be hidden. For large animals, light can be useful and risky. A squid with big eyes may detect prey or predators from farther away. A lanternfish may use light organs to break up its silhouette. A jellyfish may flash when touched. A siphonophore's tentacles may be nearly invisible until they sting. In the midwater, seeing and being seen are part of the same problem. Size makes an animal easier to detect, so large animals need strategies that reduce the cost of being large. Some deep animals become red or black because those colors disappear in the absence of red light. A red body in deep water can appear dark unless illuminated by artificial lamps. Other animals become transparent, allowing light to pass through them. Some are silver, reflecting the dim environment around them. A giant does not always hide by crouching in darkness. It may hide by becoming difficult to distinguish from water. A long transparent siphonophore is almost the extreme version of this. Its body can occupy enormous space and still be hard to see. A gelatinous predator may extend feeding threads through water without making a solid silhouette. The prey encounters the trap before it recognizes the animal. This strategy is unlike a shark's, unlike a squid's, unlike a crab's. It shows that deep sea scale has no single shape. The midwater also contains many animals that are not giants, and those animals matter because they feed the giants. Lanternfish, bristlemouths, krill, copepods, shrimp, small squid, gelatinous zooplankton, and larval forms build the prey base. Their numbers can be immense. Across the ocean, small mesopelagic fish may represent a vast amount of biomass. Large predators are made possible by small animals repeated beyond easy counting. A whale diving into this system is a temporary visitor from the surface. It carries air in its lungs, oxygen in blood and muscle, and a body evolved for deep dives, but not permanent residence. It hunts squid and fish, then returns to breathe. A squid living there has no such commute to the surface for air. A deep shark may cross depths without surfacing at all. The same habitat can be entered by animals with very different physiological solutions. Sperm whales make the scale of deep squid more concrete because they are giants themselves. A whale can descend hundreds or thousands of meters and search in darkness using sound. It can take prey that humans almost never see alive. When it returns to the surface, it may carry scars, full stomachs, or evidence inside its digestive tract. The deep sea leaves marks on animals that breathe air. Those marks have helped scientists reconstruct interactions that were not filmed. Beaks from squid accumulate in whale stomachs because the chitinous structures resist digestion. By measuring beaks, researchers can estimate the size of prey. This does not show the chase, the depth, or the exact moment of capture, but it confirms a relationship. The whale and squid are connected by anatomy preserved after one animal has become food. Sucker scars on whale skin are more ambiguous. They show contact, but not always context. A dramatic interpretation imagines equal combat every time, yet many scars may come from prey being seized, from struggling during capture, or from encounters that ended quickly. Some scars enlarge as the whale grows. Some may be old. The deep sea records contact in ways that can be misread if every mark is turned into a battle. The real predator-prey relationship is still powerful without exaggeration. A sperm whale needs deep prey to sustain its body. A giant squid or colossal squid must avoid being taken long enough to mature and reproduce. The whale's sonar, dive capacity, and social behavior meet the squid's vision, arms, jetting, and camouflage. One animal breathes air. One breathes water through gills. Their lives overlap in darkness because energy has gathered there. In this overlap, car-sized comparisons fall away for a moment. A whale is larger than any car. A squid may be longer than one. The prey fish may be smaller than a hand. The important unit is not the vehicle, but the transfer of energy through bodies. Plankton to fish, fish to squid, squid to whale, whale to seafloor after death. Size is part of that transfer, but death and digestion are part of it too. When a whale eventually sinks, its giant body becomes food for deep communities that may include other giants. Six-gill sharks, sleeper sharks, hagfish, crabs, amphipods, and bacteria arrive in phases. The whale's bones may support specialized worms. Sulfur-loving bacteria may develop as lipids break down in the bones. A single carcass can feed life for years. The largest animals of the surface become temporary ecosystems of the deep. A whale fall is not peaceful in the sentimental sense. It is feeding, tearing, dissolving, tunneling, scraping, colonizing, and chemical change. Sharks bite away flesh. Hagfish enter openings. Crustaceans crowd surfaces. Worms drill bone. Microbes alter the chemistry. The carcass loses its whale shape slowly. Ribs stand above sediment. Vertebrae whiten. The body becomes habitat, then mineral trace, then part of the seafloor's memory. This process matters to deep giants because it shows how rare abundance can shape behavior. A shark may travel to carrion. A crab may feed at the edges. Amphipods may strip tissue. A large scavenger does not need to kill every meal if the ocean itself sometimes delivers huge packages of energy. In darkness, death is not an interruption of the food web. It is one of its main supply lines. Marine snow is the constant version of this supply. It is made of dead plankton, fecal pellets, mucus, mineral grains, bacteria, and fragments from surface life. It falls slowly through the water column, eaten and transformed along the way. By the time it reaches the abyssal plain, much of its energy has already been used. Still, it feeds organisms on and in the sediment. It is the background rain beneath the surface world. A car-sized predator cannot live on marine snow directly, but it depends on the systems that marine snow supports. Small animals eat particles. Larger animals eat them. Carrion forms when bodies die. Bacteria recycle matter. Energy becomes layered through the ecosystem. The giant is never separate from the small. Its body is built from countless small transfers that began in sunlight or chemical reactions and moved through the dark. In ROV footage, marine snow is sometimes the most visible thing. White particles drift past the lens constantly, bright for an instant and then gone. Viewers may think it is visual noise. To deep animals, it is food, information, and habitat structure. The falling particles show that the surface is always entering the deep, not as light, but as matter. The abyssal plains below this rain are vast, but they are not the main stage for every giant. Many large animals gather along margins, slopes, seamounts, and canyons because those places concentrate food. A flat plain may hold life spread thinly over enormous distances. A canyon can funnel organic matter downslope. A seamount can interrupt currents and gather plankton, fish, corals, sponges, and predators. Topography matters. A submarine canyon can be a highway and a trap at the same time. Sediment moves through it. Currents accelerate along its walls. Organic debris collects in pockets. Fish shelter near structure. Squid and sharks may use the canyon's vertical relief. ROV lights reveal ledges, burrows, corals, sponges, and clouds of particles disturbed by movement. The darkness here has architecture. Canyons have become important places for discovering and detecting deep animals because they connect the shelf to deeper water. Nutrients, carcasses, and sediment can move through them. Fishermen may work nearby. Research vessels can map them. Environmental data can collect traces from water moving through the system. A giant squid detected in canyon water is not just a name on a list. It is evidence that large, elusive predators may use these productive corridors. Seamounts work differently. Rising from the seafloor, they alter currents and can create localized productivity. Deep sea corals and sponges may grow on their slopes. Fish aggregate. Predators follow. A seamount is not an island in air, but it can function as an island of structure in open water. For large animals, such features can make food more predictable in an otherwise enormous volume. A large shark cruising near a seamount may be using the same principle as a bird circling over a field edge or a wolf moving along a river corridor. Edges concentrate life. Transitions create opportunities. In the deep sea, the edges may be invisible to humans without maps and instruments, but animals respond to them. The depth, slope, current, oxygen, and prey field combine into paths. Oxygen minimum zones add another layer. In some regions, midwater depths contain less dissolved oxygen than the water above and below. Animals living there may have adaptations that allow them to tolerate low oxygen, reduce activity, or move in and out of the zone. Predators may use these zones as barriers, refuges, or feeding areas depending on their physiology and prey. A giant's size may be constrained or enabled by oxygen conditions. Deep-sea gigantism is sometimes explained too quickly by saying pressure made animals large. Pressure is certainly part of the environment, but it is not a magic enlarging force. Animals must solve biochemical problems under pressure, but many deep animals remain small. Size evolves where the benefits outweigh the costs for a lineage in a habitat. Pressure helps define the world. It does not by itself create the giant. Cold is also not enough by itself. Cold water can slow metabolism and increase oxygen solubility, but many cold water animals are small. Food supply, growth patterns, predation, lifespan, reproduction, and ecology all matter. The deep sea is not a single experiment with one result. It is many experiments happening across habitats, lineages, and millions of years. Reproduction is often the least visible part of the story. A large squid may release eggs or produce egg masses in ways rarely seen. A shark may carry young internally and give birth to relatively developed pups. A crab must molt, mate, and produce larvae that drift before returning to suitable habitat. A siphonophore reproduces through colony structures that do not resemble the familiar life of a fish or mammal. Size is only one stage of a life cycle. For many giants, the young are vulnerable in ways the adult is not. A juvenile colossal squid can be prey for fish, seabirds, marine mammals, or other squid. Young sharks may use different depths or coastal areas. Crab larvae drift in plankton, where they are food for countless mouths. A species does not survive because the adult is impressive. It survives because enough young pass through danger to become adults. This is where the deep sea becomes less like a gallery of strange specimens and more like a set of living populations. There are births, deaths, failures, missing meals, damaged limbs, parasites, and ordinary movements. A giant is not a final product displayed for human awe. It is one phase in a repeating cycle that must work again and again, mostly without being seen. Recent environmental NOAA work has shown how a giant can be present without appearing on camera. Water collected from deep canyons can contain traces of animals that moved through before the vehicle arrived. When those traces match giant squid, the discovery is not an image of arms in the light, but a molecular footprint. It is quieter than footage, but it can expand known ranges and reveal hidden presence in places where sightings are rare. For a deep sea channel, this kind of evidence is valuable because it resists spectacle. There is no monster on the screen. There is a sample bottle, a filter, a laboratory, and a sequence compared against a database. The animal is reconstructed from molecules. That may seem less cinematic, but it is one of the ways the hidden ocean becomes visible without forcing animals into human sight. Think of a canyon off a coast where the surface may be bright and ordinary. Boats pass, wind moves over the water. Far below, the canyon walls drop into darkness. A squid crosses that water at some point, leaving cells behind. Days or hours later, a sampling system closes a bottle. The animal is gone, but a trace remains. Science finds the giant after the giant has already left. This delayed encounter is common in deep-sea biology. Beaks reveal meals after digestion, scars reveal contact after healing, bones reveal whale falls after flesh is gone, NOAA reveals presence after passage. The deep sea often speaks in aftermath. To tell the story honestly, the aftermath must be allowed to matter. Not every important encounter happens in front of a camera. At the same time, traces can be overinterpreted if the narration moves faster than the science. Environmental NOAA may indicate that an animal was present in a region, but it does not show its size, age, behavior, or exact route. A giant squid trace does not mean a school bus-sized individual was filmed just out of sight. It means genetic material associated with that species was detected, and that detection becomes one piece in a larger map. This is the same restraint needed when talking about maximum sizes. The largest scientifically recorded giant squid was nearly 13 meters including tentacles, but most individuals are not that maximum. Colossal squid may weigh around half a ton in large specimens, but not every animal is the famous museum specimen. Spider crabs may span around 4 meters across the legs, but many are smaller or missing limbs. Giant claims should be true without becoming inflated. Length, mass, span, and ecological importance are different measurements. A siphonophore may be longer than a whale, but weigh far less. A colossal squid may be heavier than a giant squid, but shorter in total length. A spider crab may span wider than a car, while its central body is modest. A Greenland shark may be longer and heavier than many vehicles, but move with remarkable slowness. The word giant covers several kinds of largeness. A better way to look at these animals is to ask what the size does. Long tentacles extend feeding reach. Heavy bodies store energy and make certain prey possible. Wide legs cross sediment and rock. Large eyes gather light. Long lives allow slow growth. Colonial length increases feeding area. In each case, size has a function, or at least a set of possible functions. It is not just a number for a thumbnail. The deep sea has a way of punishing simple comparisons. A car is easy to picture because it belongs to daily life. But water changes bodies. A 4-meter crab is not a 4-meter block. A 13-meter squid is not 13 meters of muscle. A 45-meter siphonophore is not a 45-meter vertebrate. The comparison opens the door, and then biology has to walk through it. If a small car could be lowered into the midnight zone, it would become less familiar with every meter. The windows would hold air unless broken. The tires would mean nothing. The headlights would illuminate particles and a short cone of water. The metal frame would be an object without a role. A giant squid moving nearby would be longer, softer, and more alive in that pressure than the machine could ever be. This is the deeper scale reversal. On land, cars are powerful objects. In the deep sea, they are helpless unless redesigned into pressure housings, syntactic foam, thrusters, cables, and cameras. The animal is not bigger than a car because it has overcome the car's world. It is bigger than a car in a place where the car would fail. The animal is native to pressure the machine must resist. Deep sea vehicles borrow from the environment, but never fully belong to it. They need lights because human eyes do not work in darkness. They need pressure spheres because human lungs require air. They need manipulators because human hands cannot reach. They need tethers or batteries because muscles are absent. They need navigation because there are no roads. Every descent is an act of engineering against conditions that the animals treat as ordinary. The animals also have engineering, though not in metal. Collagen, muscle fibers, cartilage, chitin, hemocyanin, hemoglobin, membranes, antifreeze compounds in some polar species, pressure-adapted enzymes, buoyant tissues, low-density bodies, oil-rich livers, and gelatinous structures all do work. Evolution does not design with intention, but it preserves functioning solutions. A giant shark's liver, a squid's mantle, a siphonophores float or swimming bells, a worm's symbiosis, each structure solves a real problem. The oil-rich liver of many sharks helps with buoyancy because sharks lack the gas-filled swim bladder used by many bony fish. In the deep, gas-filled spaces are complicated by pressure. Large, deep sharks can maintain lift through liver oils, body shape, and slow movement. They do not hover like balloons. They manage density and motion, conserving energy while crossing vertical and horizontal space. Squid solve buoyancy differently. Some deep squid use ammonium-rich tissues that reduce density, making the body closer to the density of seawater. This can make them less energetically expensive to suspend in the water column. It also means that their muscles and tissues may differ from fast, shallow water squid. The body is tuned not only for movement, but for remaining in place without sinking quickly. Gelatinous animals take this even further. Their bodies contain high proportions of water, making them inexpensive to build compared with dense muscle or bone. They can become large and extended without the same material cost. But that comes with fragility. A gelatinous giant may be torn by a net, damaged by turbulence, or missed because it is nearly invisible. Its strength is inseparable from its vulnerability. The deep sea repeatedly shows that there is no single best body. A shark, squid, crab, worm, and siphonophore cannot be ranked on one ladder of improvement. Each belongs to its own solution space. The shark carries a jaw and cartilage through cold water. The squid carries arms and a beak. The crab carries armor and jointed legs. The worm carries bacteria. The siphonophore carries a colony. The deep sea accepts all of them where conditions allow. The question of why some animals become large also has a historical dimension. Deep sea lineages have had time to adapt to stable cold environments, but the deep ocean itself is not unchanged. Oxygen levels shift. Climate changes. Currents reorganize. Surface productivity varies. Fishing expands into deeper waters. The modern deep sea is ancient in some physical ways and newly affected in others. Human impact reaches the deep, even where human bodies rarely go. Deep water trawling can damage slow-growing corals and sponges. Fisheries can remove long-lived fish, and sharks faster than populations replace themselves. Plastic, chemical pollutants, and carbon from the surface move downward. Climate change alters temperature, oxygen, and food supply. The deep sea is remote, but not protected by remoteness alone. Large animals are often especially vulnerable because their life histories are slow. A species that matures late, grows slowly, or produces few surviving young cannot recover quickly from heavy mortality. Deep sharks, large fish, and some crustaceans may be caught before their biology is fully understood. The size that makes them impressive can also make them targets, bycatch, or slow casualties of systems designed for extraction. This does not mean every deep-sea giant is on the edge of extinction or that every interaction with humans is equally harmful. The status varies by species and region. Some are poorly known, some are protected in certain places, some are mostly affected indirectly. Scientific caution is needed here too. But caution does not mean ignoring risk. A hidden animal can decline before the public knows it existed. The deep sea has also become a place of interest for mining, especially for polymetallic nodules, seafloor massive sulfides, and cobalt-rich crusts. These resources form over long periods and occur in habitats that may support specialized communities. Mining disturbance could remove physical structures, create sediment plumes, and alter habitats on timescales far longer than a human project. The giants are not always the animals most directly attached to nodules or vents, but they belong to the wider systems that could be affected. A nodule field on the abyssal plain may look empty through an impatient camera. Then, a sponge appears attached to a hard surface. A small octopus broods eggs on a stalk. A sea cucumber moves across sediment. A brittle star clings to a rise. Life is sparse compared with a coral reef, but sparse is not the same as worthless. In the deep sea, recovery can be slow because growth is slow and disturbance may last. Noise and light can matter too. Deep animals evolved without ship engines, industrial lights, repeated ROV approaches, seismic surveys, or constant artificial illumination. The effects vary and are still being studied. Some animals flee light. Some approach it. Some are attracted to bait more than disturbed by the vehicle. Observing the deep sea inevitably changes a small area for a short time. Responsible science tries to minimize that change and interpret behavior with awareness of it. A squid approaching a camera may be curious, hunting, confused, or responding to a lure. A shark circling a submersible may be investigating, competing for bait, or reacting to electrical and mechanical cues. A crab raising its legs may be defensive or simply adjusting posture. Human instruments are not neutral scenery. They enter the sensory world of animals and become part of the observation. This is why the best footage is often accompanied by humility. The image is powerful, but it is not the animal's full biography. A big-fin squid posture may suggest feeding, but unless prey capture is observed, the explanation remains proposed. A shark's depth track may show vertical movement, but the motivation may require temperature, oxygen, prey, and behavioral context. A siphonophore's length may be estimated, but the colony's full shape may have extended beyond the field of view. The deep sea rewards patience in narration as much as in science. It does not need to be made more mysterious than it is. A body longer than a car, seen once at the edge of a beam, already contains enough uncertainty. A shark that may live for centuries already contains enough scale. A juvenile colossal squid filmed after 100 years of knowing the species mostly from remains already contains enough wonder. The next question is how these giants fit together. Because they do not all meet. A Greenland shark in Arctic water, a colossal squid in the Southern Ocean, a spider crab off Japan, a siphonophore off Western Australia, a six-gill shark near a whale fall, and an oarfish in the mesopelagic may never share the same habitat. The title gathers them by size, but biology separates them by place. Place is the first correction to the idea of deep-sea giants as one group. The deep ocean is not one room. It is a set of habitats that differ by depth, latitude, chemistry, topography, and food supply. The Southern Ocean is not the same as a Japanese continental slope. A hydrothermal vent is not the same as open midwater. A trench is not the same as a submarine canyon. A giant from one place cannot simply be moved into another and remain the same animal. The giant squid has a broad distribution, but that does not mean it is everywhere equally. It appears in records from many oceans, and yet direct encounters remain rare. Its presence may depend on prey fields, depth structure, temperature, and the movements of sperm whales and other predators. A global map of records is not a map of constant abundance. It is a map shaped by animals, currents, fisheries, strandings, research effort, and chance. The colossal squid is more restricted, associated with Antarctic and Southern Ocean waters. Its story is tied to cold, to sperm whales, to toothfish fisheries that have occasionally brought specimens to human notice, and to a region where weather, ice, distance, and expense make research difficult. A world map may show a neat southern range, but the lived habitat is three-dimensional, seasonal, and poorly observed. Bigfin squid have been recorded in widely separated parts of the deep ocean. Their rarity in observations makes it hard to know how common they are. They may be broadly distributed and simply difficult to encounter, or their populations may be sparse. The deep sea often leaves scientists balancing these possibilities. Rare sightings can reflect rare animals, rare access, or both. A cautious script does not pretend to know which explanation dominates without evidence. The Japanese spider crab is tied more closely to regional seafloor habitats. It occurs in waters around Japan, often on slopes and deeper coastal zones. It has a fishery history and an aquarium presence that make it more familiar than many deep animals. Yet even here, the familiar image of the crab in a display tank is only a partial version of the animal. The true context includes depth, substrate, food, molt cycles, predators, and the long, damaged lives of wild crabs. The Greenland shark belongs to cold northern systems. Its life is shaped by Arctic and subarctic waters, deep channels, fjords, continental slopes, and long darkness. Its biology cannot be separated from cold. A tropical deep water shark may also live beyond daylight, but it does not inhabit the same thermal world. Temperature is not background. It is one of the main forces shaping metabolism, movement, growth, and longevity. The blunt-nosed six-gill shark has a wider distribution and appears in temperate and tropical waters, often deep but sometimes shallow at night or in certain life stages. It can connect whale falls, wrecks, slopes, and canyons. Its size makes it visually powerful, but its ecological importance may lie in movement across habitats, in its role as predator and scavenger, and in the way it links scattered food sources across depth. The siphonophore belongs to open water, where there may be no seafloor for thousands of meters below and no fixed object within sight. Its colony can drift, contract, extend, and arrange itself in feeding shapes. The habitat is not empty just because it lacks landmarks. It is full of prey, currents, light gradients, and chemical conditions. For a colonial drifter, the ocean's volume is the landscape. Once these animals are placed correctly, the title changes meaning. Deep-sea giants bigger than cars is not a lineup. It is a question about how different parts of the hidden ocean allow large bodies, long bodies, wide bodies, heavy bodies, and colonial bodies to exist. The answer is not one law. It is a geography of solutions. The animals also differ in how they are seen by humans. A spider crab may be seen alive in aquariums. A six-gill shark may appear in ROV footage or be tagged. A Greenland shark may be encountered by submersibles or fisheries in cold waters. A giant squid may be known from rare footage, strandings, and beaks. A colossal squid may be studied as a specimen and only recently seen alive as a juvenile. A siphonophore may only make sense when recorded in place. These differences create different emotional textures around the animals. Familiarity softens the spider crab, rarity sharpens the giant squid, longevity gives weight to the Greenland shark, fragility complicates the siphonophore. The colossal squid carries the tension between museum certainty and living uncertainty. The six-gill shark feels present because its body often moves calmly through footage. None of these textures should replace the biology, but they shape how viewers receive it. A deep-sea narrator has to keep returning to matter. The hook is matter. The beak is matter. The crab's missing leg is matter. The shark's liver is matter. The siphonophore's gelatinous colony is matter. The oarfish on a beach is matter, misplaced from its proper medium. Without matter, the script becomes atmosphere. With matter, the atmosphere belongs to a real habitat. There is a preserved beak in a drawer somewhere, dark and hard, small enough to hold in a hand and large enough to imply a body no hand could hold. There is a crab shell with a broken joint. There is a sample vial of water from a canyon. There is a frame of video showing a fin, a depth number, and particles like slow snow. These objects are not dramatic by themselves. They become dramatic because of what they connect. They connect the surface to the deep. They connect a research ship to an animal that never saw the ship. They connect a whale's stomach to a squid's body. They connect a beach, stranding to a vertical life in dim water. They connect a laboratory sequence to a canyon at depth. They connect a museum tank to the Southern Ocean. The deep sea is studied through such connections because no person can remain there long enough to see everything unfold. Scale also changes when time is added. A giant squid's life may be relatively short compared with sharks, growing quickly for a large invertebrate. A Greenland shark may live across centuries. A hydrothermal vent community may change as flow shifts or chimneys collapse. A whale fall may feed life for years and then fade into bones. A nodule field may take millions of years to form hard surfaces the size of potatoes. The deep sea is not only deep in space, it is layered in time. For a car, age is a maintenance record. For a deep animal, age can be stored in tissues, growth bands, eye lenses, chemical signatures, scars, and reproductive condition. Determining age is not always straightforward. Some fish otoliths carry rings. Some sharks require unusual methods. Some invertebrates are difficult to age at all. Without age, size is incomplete, because a 5-meter body means different things if it grew in years, decades, or centuries. Longevity can make conservation difficult. Orange roughy, a deep sea fish, not bigger than a car, but important as an example, can live for very long periods and was heavily fished in some regions. Such species demonstrate that deep water animals may not recover quickly from extraction. Large sharks and other slow-growing animals raise similar concerns. The deep sea's slow biology can collide badly with fast human harvest. This matters even when the title focuses on giants. The same conditions that allow large size or long life can make animals vulnerable. Slow growth, late maturity, low reproductive output, and specialized habitats mean that removal is not easily repaired. A deep sea giant is impressive in part because it represents accumulated time. Losing such an animal can mean losing time that cannot be replaced within a human planning cycle. Climate change adds another pressure that is harder to see from a single ROV dive. Warming can alter oxygen levels, stratification, circulation, and the amount of food reaching depth. Polar systems may change as ice and productivity shift. Oxygen minimum zones may expand in some regions. Species adapted to narrow thermal ranges may face conditions outside their histories. The deep sea is buffered in some ways, but it is not beyond the climate system. A colossal squid in the Southern Ocean depends on food webs that begin with polar productivity. A Greenland shark depends on cold northern systems. A siphonophore in open water depends on prey fields structured by currents and plankton. A six-gill shark depends on prey and carrion moving through slopes and basins. None of these animals floats outside environmental change. Their size does not exempt them from dependence. It would be too simple to claim that all deep-sea giants are doomed, just as it would be too simple to claim that remoteness keeps them safe. The honest position is less satisfying and more accurate. Some impacts are known. Some are likely. Some remain uncertain. Monitoring is difficult. Baselines are incomplete. Population sizes may be poorly estimated. The deep sea can hide decline as easily as it hides abundance. The challenge for science is not only to discover large animals, but to understand enough about their lives to notice when those lives are changing. A single spectacular sighting can inspire attention, but long-term knowledge comes from repeated surveys, tagging, genetics, fisheries data, museum collections, and careful comparisons. The first camera encounter opens a door. It does not finish the house. There is humility in that. A juvenile colossal squid passes through one ROV's lights after a century of the species being known from remains. For a day, the world sees it. For the animal, if it survived, the encounter is one small interruption in a life that may have continued into deeper, colder water. The camera made history. The squid simply lived. If the descent were arranged by depth rather than by species, the giants would appear at different levels of the water. In the upper twilight zone, the last sunlight would show only as blue. Small animals would begin their daily migrations. Larger predators would wait above and below them. A megamouth shark might move through prey-rich layers. An oarfish might hold itself vertically in dim water. The scale would be present, but not always obvious. At several hundred meters, the world would be neither surface nor abyss. It would be a region of transition, with enough light for silhouettes and enough darkness for bioluminescence to matter. Many large animals use this zone part-time or full-time. It is where humans start to lose ordinary categories. A fish can be longer than a person. A squid can be invisible until it moves. A shark can rise from deeper water under cover of night. Deeper still, around 1,000 meters and beyond, the midnight zone takes over. Giant squid, bigfin squid, deep sharks, and long gelatinous colonies may occupy parts of this water depending on region. The ROV lights now create the only strong illumination. Every particle becomes bright in the beam. Every animal is seen against black. The absence of background makes size difficult until a laser scale appears or the animal passes near the vehicle. At 2,000 meters, the pressure is around 200 atmospheres. A human object with any weakness may fail. The water is cold. Food arrives unevenly. Still, life is present. A bigfin squid may hang with long appendages extended. A deep shark may pass along a slope. A siphonophore may drift in a shape too large to fit the screen. The deep does not become empty because it becomes difficult for us. Below 3,000 meters, much of the ocean is far beyond casual imagination. The seafloor, if present, may be a plain of fine sediment broken by tracks, burrows, nodules, sponges, sea cucumbers, and the occasional carcass. A large shark may be less common here than on productive slopes, but scavengers still respond to food. The animals that live here are not waiting for humans to name the place. They are already inside its rules. At hydrothermal vents and cold seeps, the descent changes again. Instead of sparse sediment, there may be dense communities built around chemistry. Giant tube worms, mussels, clams, shrimp, crabs, fish, and microbial mats appear where energy enters from below. The giants here are not car-length predators. They are large worms, long-lived clams, dense colonies, and the architecture of life around chemical flow. Size becomes local abundance as much as body length. At Whale Falls, the giant is first the whale itself, delivered from the surface to the deep. Then the giant becomes the shark feeding on it, the crab pulling tissue, the bone community developing over years, and the bacterial process inside the skeleton. A whale fall shows the continuity between the largest surface animals and deep-sea ecosystems. Even animals that do not live permanently in the deep can become part of its foundation after death. A car-sized comparison cannot hold this whole descent, but it remains useful because it keeps the scale physical. A large six-gill shark beside a car would be unmistakable. A Greenland shark would exceed it in length. A giant squid's tentacles could stretch past it. A Japanese spider crab could span across it. A siphonophore could extend beyond many cars in a row. But none of those comparisons tells us what the animal is doing in the water. To understand a giant, the comparison must become a question. What does this length allow? What does this mass cost? What does this span reach? What does this eye detect? What does this slow life require? What kind of food web can support this body? What evidence do we have? What evidence is missing? The deep sea giant becomes most real when the question moves from size to survival. Survival, in deep water, often means being ordinary most of the time. The animal is not always feeding. It is not always being filmed. It is not always fighting. A shark swims. A squid holds position. A crab crosses sediment. A siphonophore drifts. An oarfish ripples its fin. These ordinary behaviors are the fabric of the life. The spectacular moment is only a small bright tear in that fabric where humans happen to look through. The footage we remember may be brief, because brief footage is often all there is. A pale squid touching a lure, a shark crossing a whale fall, a crab raising itself over sediment, a siphonophore spiral filmed from above, a juvenile colossal squid hovering like a small glass shape in the beam. These moments become famous because they are rare, but the animals cannot be reduced to rarity. They are not rare to themselves. There is also a moral caution in the way giants are named. Words like monster, beast, alien, and nightmare come easily when an animal is large and unfamiliar. They are not always malicious words, but they can place distance between the viewer and the living organism. A giant squid is not a monster to itself or to the fish it eats. It is a predator. A six-gill shark is not evil at a whale fall. It is feeding. A spider crab is not alien in its own water. It is at home. Calling deep animals alien can be understandable because their habitats differ so much from human experience. But the word can also obscure the fact that they are earth animals, built from the same broad biological materials and evolutionary processes as surface life. Their strangeness is not proof that they belong elsewhere. It is proof that Earth contains environments much wider than the ones humans occupy. The deep sea is not a separate planet. It is connected to weather, plankton, rivers, fisheries, carbon, whale migrations, industrial activity, and the surface atmosphere. The giant animals below are not symbols from another universe. They are consequences of this planet. They belong to Earth as fully as forests, grasslands, cities, and shorelines do. Their hiddenness is spatial, not cosmic. That may be the most important part of the scale. These animals are not impossible. They are possible here. A squid can grow longer than a car in water cold and dark enough to hide it. A shark can live longer than any human institution in northern depths. A crab can stretch its legs across 4 meters of seafloor. A siphonophore can organize a colony longer than any single vertebrate body. Earth has made room for them. The room is physical. It is water pressure, temperature, food supply, dissolved oxygen, current, chemistry, and time. It is not a poetic void. It is not a blank darkness. It is habitat. A giant body is a record of that habitat, working long enough for growth to happen. Every large animal is evidence that its environment has supplied enough energy, avoided enough catastrophe, and allowed enough reproduction for that body plan to persist. This does not mean giants are common. Many are rare in records. Some may be naturally sparse. Some may be widespread, but hard to find. Some may occur in deep habitats, where sampling is expensive and uneven. The ocean's volume makes even large animals difficult to encounter. If a camera does not see a giant during a dive, that absence says little by itself. The frame is tiny. The ocean is not. A single ROV dive may cover a path that looks significant on a map, but is microscopic compared with the surrounding water. It may pass over meters of sediment, minutes of canyon wall, or a small portion of a seamount. A large animal could be a few hundred meters away and never appear. A siphonophore could be above. A shark could be below. A squid could see the lights and turn before the camera ever resolves it. The surface gives no sign of this. A ship sits over deep water. The waves move. Clouds pass. People on deck may drink coffee, check lines, coil rope, or watch the horizon. Beneath them, the cable enters the sea and disappears. Beneath that, the ROV descends through blue, then gray, then black. A few kilometers away in the same water, a giant may be moving without disturbance. This separation between surface calm and deep activity is one of the oldest sources of ocean mystery, but it should not be exaggerated into fantasy. The hidden world is hidden because water is deep, dark, and difficult, not because it refuses knowledge. With each descent, each sample, each tag, each specimen, the hidden world becomes more detailed. Detail does not remove wonder, it gives wonder edges. The giant squid's edge is a sucker ring and a beak. The colossal squid's edge is a rotating hook and a massive eye. The bigfin squid's edge is a filament descending out of frame. The oarfish's edge is a red crest and a silver body held vertically. The six-gill shark's edge is a broad head and 6 gill openings. The Greenland shark's edge is time, cold, and slow movement. The spider crab's edge is a long orange leg stepping across the bottom. The siphonophore's edge is almost invisible until the whole colony becomes a line of light. Each edge leads inward. Anatomy leads to behavior. Behavior leads to habitat. Habitat leads to food webs. Food webs lead to the surface, to microbes, to climate, to death, to reproduction, to human tools. The largest animals in the hidden ocean are not isolated curiosities. They are entry points into systems that are larger than any individual body. A giant can die unnoticed. A huge squid may be eaten by a whale and leave only a beak. A Greenland shark may sink after a long life and be consumed by scavengers. A siphonophore may break apart in the water and vanish into smaller pieces. A spider crab may lose a leg, molt, regrow, and continue. A six-gill may feed on a carcass and disappear into a canyon. The ocean does not preserve every ending. That lack of preservation is part of why the deep sea feels unfinished to us. We are used to stories with visible beginnings and endings. The deep often offers middles. A body appears already grown. A specimen arrives already dead. A trace is detected after passage. A scar is seen after healing. A carcass is found after sinking. Science then works backward and forward from the evidence, building a life around the part that remained. The parts that remain must be treated honestly. A beak does not give the whole squid. A DNA trace does not give the full encounter. A maximum length does not give the average animal. A dramatic video does not give the species' daily behavior. A museum specimen does not show motion. A myth does not become biology just because a real animal inspired it. The deep sea deserves better than shortcuts. It also deserves better than emptiness. A camera frame with no large animal in it may still contain larvae, bacteria, falling particles, dissolved organic matter, and chemical gradients. A sediment plain may hold burrowing animals below the visible surface. A black midwater frame may contain signals beyond the lamp. The giants are easiest to talk about, but they are supported by countless lives too small to become the title. Large size can even depend on smallness. The krill that feed filter feeders. The plankton that begin food chains. The bacteria that digest whale bones or live inside ventworms. The amphipods that process carrion. The lanternfish that carry energy upward and downward each day. The parasites that affect eyes, skin, and growth. No giant is independent from the miniature systems around it. For a viewer, this can make the deep sea feel less like a place of monsters and more like a place of proportions. Some things are enormous, some are microscopic, some are longer than cars and nearly weightless, some are small enough to pass through a filter and still reveal the presence of a giant. The hidden ocean is not strange because it breaks the rules of life. It is strange because it follows rules we do not encounter on land. A car is built for a flat surface, a breathable atmosphere, fuel stations, roads, and human hands. A deep sea giant is built for pressure, darkness, cold, hunger, currents, and the presence or absence of other bodies. Put each one in the other's world, and the comparison collapses. Keep each one where it belongs, and the comparison becomes a doorway into how different Earth can be. As the descent nears its end, the most useful image may not be the largest animal at all. It may be the ROV monitor after the animal has left. Particles move through the beam. The depth number remains. The pilots continue their work. A sample drawer closes. A crab crosses the corner of the frame. Somewhere beyond the lights, a body larger than a car is still present in the water, but no longer visible. The animal has not vanished because the screen is empty. It has only returned to the scale where humans cannot easily follow. This may be the most accurate image of deep-sea giants, not always the moment of encounter, but the moment after, when the light is still on and the water has closed around what was seen. The evidence remains, but the body continues elsewhere. A giant squid may leave the lure and descend. A 6-gill shark may angle down the slope until the camera sees only tail and then sediment. A spider crab may step behind a rock ledge with no urgency. A siphonophore may drift beyond the range of the lamps, its colony still extended through water the camera can no longer separate from darkness. Human attention ends at the frame. The animal's life does not. This difference between attention and life is important. Viewers may meet an animal for 10 seconds and remember it for years. Scientists may analyze the same 10 seconds frame by frame, measuring posture, depth, movement, and context. But the animal's own time is larger than the footage. It includes the hours before the encounter, the days after it, the seasonal movements, the feeding events, and the reproductive cycle that may never be filmed. Deep-sea giants are therefore not simply rare sights. They are long continuities interrupted by brief visibility. The camera does not create them. The headline does not enlarge them. The measurement does not complete them. They exist whether the vehicle arrives or not. The ocean has been holding these bodies, and others like them, through darkness, cold, and pressure, long before a human lens could tolerate the descent. Imagine the research ship recovering the ROV at night. The vehicle breaks the surface covered in water, cables, and the smell of metal and salt. Crew members secure it under bright deck lights. Inside the control room, the footage is copied and logged. Someone may already know that a rare animal crossed the camera. Someone else may still be checking the scale lasers, depth, and timecode. Discovery is exciting, but it is also clerical, careful, and slow. Later, the video may be reviewed by specialists. A squid expert looks at arm posture, fins, tentacles, hooks, or proportions. A shark specialist looks at gill slits, head shape, fin placement, and movement. A crustacean expert checks leg structure and carapace. A gelatinous animal specialist considers colony arrangement. The name attached to the animal may arrive after the encounter, not during it. Identification is part of the descent continuing on land. This is especially true when species are rare or poorly known. A blurry deep-sea image can be misleading. A familiar common name may hide taxonomic uncertainty. A juvenile may look different from an adult. A damaged specimen may lack features needed for identification. A new species may resemble a known one until genetic or anatomical work separates them. The deep sea teaches that seeing is not always the same as knowing. Yet seeing still matters. A live animal in the water can correct assumptions built from dead bodies. It can show posture, color, transparency, speed, reaction to light, association with habitat, and depth. The first confirmed footage of a living juvenile colossal squid mattered because the species had been known mostly through remains and captured specimens. A small living body can change a century of imagination by simply appearing where it belongs. The fact that the animal was small made the moment more precise. It reminded people that the largest known invertebrate does not begin as a legend. It begins as a young animal with a fragile body, vulnerable to predators, currents, hunger, and chance. It must survive through stages that are less famous than the adult. The giant is not born giant. It becomes one through a sequence of ordinary biological risks. The same is true of sharks. A Greenland shark longer than a car begins as a young shark small enough to be eaten or injured. A 6-gill shark reaching several meters begins in nursery habitats or early life stages far from the impressive adult footage. A spider crab's vast leg span begins with larvae drifting in plankton. A siphonophore colony begins through development and budding, building its length through repeated specialized units. Large size is a process, not a sudden fact. That process is easy to forget because humans often meet giants at the end of growth. We see the big body first and then build the story backward. But the deep sea is full of beginnings. Eggs, larvae, juveniles, fragments of colonies, small sharks, young squid, tiny crustaceans, microbial mats, and the first scavengers at a carcass. The giants are only the most visible answers to questions that begin much smaller. A script about deep-sea giants could stay with records alone. Longest, heaviest, widest, deepest, oldest, those records are useful because they anchor scale. But they do not tell the whole truth. The whole truth is that each record is attached to a living system. The longest animal still needs prey. The heaviest squid still needs oxygen and reproduction. The oldest shark still needs a young stage. The widest crab still needs molts and food. The biggest body is never separate from ordinary dependence. That dependence makes the animals more impressive, not less. A machine can be assembled to a size determined by engineering and money. A living giant must grow from tissue, feed itself, avoid death, repair damage, and fit into a world full of other organisms. Every meter of squid tentacle, every centimeter of shark growth, every joint in a spider crab's leg, every module of a siphonophore colony has been paid for with energy gathered from the ocean. The deep sea is often described through lack of light, lack of warmth, lack of food, lack of human access. Those lacks are real, but they are not the whole place. The hidden ocean also has currents, chemical flows, migrations, carcasses, slopes, vents, seeps, canyons, prey layers, and biological strategies that turn scarcity into life. The giants are evidence not of emptiness, but of systems capable of supporting bodies that should not be simplified into surprise. Still, the deep does impose limits. A giant body costs energy. A long appendage can be damaged. A large shark must find enough food. A crab must survive molts. A gelatinous colony can be torn. A squid can be eaten by a whale. No animal becomes large without risk. Size can protect, extend, store, or impress, but it can also slow, expose, and demand. The balance of advantage and cost is where evolution works. If a long tentacle helps enough prey be captured, it can persist. If a large body stores enough energy and reduces predation enough to offset feeding demands, it can persist. If slow growth in cold water leads to long reproductive life, it can persist. If a colonial body spreads feeding surfaces efficiently, it can persist. The deep sea does not create giants because giant sounds impressive. It keeps them when giant works. In some cases, scientists still do not know exactly how well it works. Bigfin squid feeding behavior remains uncertain. Colossal squid adult behavior remains rarely observed. Giant squid population sizes are difficult to estimate. Greenland shark age and maturity estimates are still refined with ongoing research. Siphonophore measurements can be challenging. The honest story leaves these uncertainties visible, not as failures, but as the real shape of knowledge at depth. This uncertainty is not empty. It has edges, methods, and next questions. More cameras can document behavior. More tags can show movement. More DNA samples can map presence. More specimen work can refine anatomy. More careful fisheries records can reveal distribution and vulnerability. More long-term observing systems can show change over time. The deep sea is not unknowable. It is expensive, difficult, and slow to know well. Slow knowledge fits a slow world. A vehicle descends for hours. A shark grows for decades. A nodule forms across millions of years. Marine snow falls particle by particle. A whale carcass is consumed in stages. A tube worm grows with bacteria inside it. A siphonophore drifts through prey fields. A squid waits beyond the light. The pace is not the pace of the surface, and the script should not force it to be. At the end of the descent, the surface will still look calm. The ship may turn toward port. The samples may go into freezers. The footage may be archived. The sea will close behind the cable as if nothing unusual happened. Far below, the same habitats continue. The canyon still channels particles. The seamount still interrupts currents. The vent still releases dark fluid. The whale bones, if they are there, continue to feed worms and bacteria. A giant squid still moves somewhere in the dark water, longer than the car that brought a researcher to the dock. A Greenland shark still crosses cold depth more slowly than a human thought. A sixgill still follows scent over a slope. A spider crab still lifts one long leg and places it carefully on the bottom. A siphonophore still arranges its living line through water that no road will ever cross. None of them needs to be a monster. None of them needs to be a metaphor. They are large because their worlds have allowed largeness, and they remain hidden because those worlds are difficult for humans to enter. When they appear, the right response is not to turn them into exaggeration, but to look carefully, measure honestly, and remember that the light has touched only a small part of what is there. The camera beam narrows as the vehicle rises. Particles climb past the lens now, or seem to, as the machine returns toward the ship. Below it, the water settles back into darkness. Somewhere outside the frame, a body bigger than a car moves without headlights, without roads, without needing the surface to understand it. The last image is not a record length or a headline. It is a shape, leaving the light at its own speed. A fin becomes a shadow. A tentacle becomes a line. A crab leg slips behind stone. Marine snow continues to fall after the giant is gone, and the black water, which looked empty for a moment, is only waiting for the next animal to enter the beam. The next time a large deep-sea animal appears in footage, the first question should not be whether it is the biggest ever seen. The better question is where it is, what the depth is, what the temperature may be, what other animals are nearby, whether the seafloor is visible, whether the animal is feeding, resting, avoiding the vehicle, or simply passing through. Record size is a doorway, but context is the room behind it. A giant without context becomes a rumor with measurements. A giant with context becomes part of the ocean. The difference is visible in the smallest details. A shark near a whale fall is not just a shark. It is a participant in the breakdown of a carcass. A big fin squid above the bottom is not just a strange silhouette. It is a predator or sensory specialist positioned in relation to prey and depth. A spider crab on a slope is not just a leg span. It is an animal crossing a habitat that may have fed it for many years. This is why the deep sea keeps changing as science improves. The animals do not change because we film them. Our categories change. A monster becomes a cephalopod. A sea serpent becomes an oarfish. An empty plain becomes a sediment ecosystem. A strange colony becomes a siphonophore with specialized parts. A dark slope becomes a corridor of food, current, and movement. The hidden ocean becomes less imaginary and more complex. Complexity is quieter than myth, but it lasts longer. A myth can be told in one sentence. A living system requires depth, place, evidence, uncertainty, and patience. It asks for the animal to remain an animal, not a prop for fear. It asks for the darkness to remain a condition of habitat, not a personality. It asks for size to be measured without inflating it. It asks for the unknown to stay unknown until evidence changes it. The giants of the deep sea are not waiting below us like trophies. They are moving through their own pressures, their own hunger, their own long intervals between events. Some will never be filmed. Some will be known only by fragments. Some will appear once change what scientists thought was possible, and then leave no easy way to follow. The ocean is large enough for that to happen again and again. A final descent does not end with certainty. It ends with a better sense of proportion. The surface world is not the whole world. A car is not the natural measure of size. Human light is not the boundary of life. The deep sea contains animals longer, wider, heavier, older, and stranger than surface comparisons can hold, but each of them is still made of ordinary living needs: food, movement, protection, reproduction, and time. The water keeps its scale after the camera leaves. Marine snow falls through it. Prey layers rise and sink. A carcass settles into sediment. A crab finds the edge of food. A shark follows a trace. A squid opens its arms in darkness. Far above, the surface remains bright enough for people to think the ocean has ended where the light stops. While below, the hidden animals continue without that mistake.